I just want to ask you to elaborate on the monetary policy aspect. Right now, we're seeing eggs at $6 for a dozen. We're seeing, banks going insolvent. Can you explain what this economic system is? What's wrong with it?
Well, the main reason is you don't have a definition of the unit of account, because if you were building a building and you were an architect, you'd want a unit of account or a unit of measurement. How are we going to measure all these things? Are we going to do it in feet, yards, or whatever? Because everything has to be measured. In economics, you have to have a unit of account. And that, of course, is a defined currency. And they can get away with, messing it up for long periods of time. We were able to get away with destroying the unit of account, all the way back in 1934 and 1971, the way it is now. But we were very, very wealthy. And we still are wealthy, but we're getting poorer because people rely on debt, and the debt is growing, and the price inflation is moving along, and it's a consequence that they've destroyed one of the most important items. The most important price in economics is the price of money, how much it takes to borrow. What was it? Minus for a couple years. And during that time, the Fed would come up and say, we're having trouble. We want the inflation, the price inflation. We want the destruction of the value of money go at 2% a year. And it's down to -1 or -2. This is the craziest thing in the world. The last thing they should be doing. But now, and I said, when it finally gets to 2%, you wait, you won't even see it. It'll be 10% after that. And now that's because there's the theory of subjective theory of value that tells you that you can't make those predictions, but you can make predictions that if you mess up with the monetary system, run up debt, all this debt has to be liquidated, and we are in the middle of defaulting on that money, and that is the crisis we face. And right now, we're not very far along at accepting what we have to accept if we want to crawl our way out of here and get back to being a productive nation.
Do you think I just want to go back a little bit what you said before this statement, because I think this is what really is important about your message. A lot of people are like, what politician is going to save me? And in reality, no politician is going to save you. Personal responsibility is extremely important. What's happening with the big banks, what's happening with the ESG score, the international, multinational corporations running things is far more important, especially when it comes to your own individual decisions that you make in everyday life. And I think this is why that message is so much more important, because everyone's like, please, someone save us. In reality, the only person who's going to save you is you yourself. And you've taken many steps. Homeschooling, you opened up a homeschooling network as well. Can you tell us how that is going and how people could potentially be involved in that? Well,
it's the Ron Paul curriculum. You just get on the website there, and the school has done steady and does well, but there was a big burst of interest, during COVID, but some of the people went back to the government schools, after that. So I think that people will respond, and that's why the important thing is to keep things legal so that we can do that. And that's why the internet is so important. It can be a destroyer, or it could be our savior. I mean, we do our program, on the internet. It's where we do it. We get programs like this out. So that is, and every once in a while I'll see something. I've always thought, the libertarians will take care of that. There's a lot of smart people. They know this. And when the government comes in and takes over the internet, they will have competition. And I think we're getting it. And it's just a little bit slow in doing it. But I think as long as you have some freedom there and can use it, but that's why we're in such a threatening period, because they're destroying our First Amendment rights. People are getting punished for this. They lose their jobs. I knew doctors that, I'm taking care of patients, and they say, and they might have their livelihood. And they said, well, if you don't get your shot, you're going to lose your hospital position, your hospital privileges. That is really wicked stuff. So that protecting the First Amendment is one of our biggest challenges right now.
Yeah, I think the way the First Amendment translates to the internet is software code. We need the access to our software code so we can see if it's spying on us or if it's feeding us malinformation algorithms. It's going to be like something, an amendment maybe to the Constitution to guarantee a freedom.
Let me break that down and actually ask you, Dr. Paul. What Ian brings up a great point. When you're on Facebook, when you're on Twitter, they're choosing what you see to manipulate what you think. So how can we have free speech if these big corporations are only letting us see one thing?
Well, you can't. And I'll be the first one to tell you that technology, I don't understand a lot of it, but I want it to be free and to make these decisions elsewhere. But no, the big thing is, and Jonathan Turley has done such a great job to exposing this. The line has to be drawn in, and I bet you there are a lot of libertarians at the beginning of this. I was like, well, these companies are private. They can do what they want. We're not going to close them down. But there is an answer for that. They're not private. And early on, I said, they're nothing but the arm of the government. And that's a big difference. And then all of a sudden, we got the proof of that. But that came out now, not many people are talking about it. But the FBI and the CIA, they work with these companies like all the social welfare, social companies. Well, that is a big deal, and that could be stopped. That should it should be a violent act to do that, especially when the government's there. That's why we should have a lot less government.
Yes, and they did it from the very beginning, especially with companies like In-Q-Tel, especially with a lot of the seed funding, especially with a lot of the advancement that government gave companies like Google, Alphabet to the advantage over their competitors. And I saw a lot of people argue, even just a couple of years ago, being like, these companies are private companies. They could do what they want. We have to stand by capitalism. I'm like, you guys aren't even paying attention to what's really going on here because, as you said, they are arms of the state. They are acting for their own best interest, and they're sowing division in this country, creating order out of chaos to specifically create a situation where we are fighting each other over petty differences rather than actually looking at the true source of our problem, and that's the dollar being devalued. That's our currency just being thrown away and our whole livelihoods just being taken away from us, which is absolutely crazy.
Do you think it would be righteous to default on the interest to the Federal Reserve?
Yeah, I think if I could write a pen and close down the Federal Reserve, I just would, and everybody has to scatter.
What would be like the evolution of our monetary system? What's a better system?
But I wouldn't do that. I guess I say the most important thing if you want to act in a somewhat gradual system, because you're not going to do that. You're not going to do it because if you cut the Fed off, the whole thing crashes and there'll be revolutions and all this. So I started with getting more information. That's why I concentrate on auditing the Fed, find out what they're doing. And the one thing over the many years that I've worked on this that is the most important information that they hang on to, and that is their transactions with foreign governments. That is really sacred, and they don't want that to happen.
I've been told that they work with the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland, and like the Bank of London, the Bank of Australia, and the New York Federal Reserve are like, they all send money through this Swiss bank.
Yeah, that's right. It's a bank for the central banks. And I guess they have to park some of their money in places. But it's the nature of the monetary system. See, if prior to central banking, which was, the debate started with our revolution with Jefferson and Hamilton. There was they weren't discussing the Bank of International Settlements back then. So it's totally unnecessary in a free market. The most important thing is define the currency by weight or something real, and then then prohibiting anybody from disobeying it. And the Constitution is pretty clear on it. And some of the states now are reacting to this. States are coming through and trying to develop their own currency because it's tough for them to say, well, the states can only use, gold and silver as legal tender. Now, my bill in Congress was a little bit more generalized. It said, repeal all the laws, all the monopoly laws that the government has and control, and let the market decide it. But the founders said, no, even the states can't just print up their own money. But I think in a free society, a libertarian society, you could have contracts. If you're setting up a bank and you say, this is the unit of account, and they say, and you're going to use gold, you have to live up to your contract.
It seems like crypto is the new contract, which is data. Like, what's the account symbol? It's how much work was done to produce the Bitcoin or whatever. So you can see on a database, well, there was this much computer power used.
Well, yeah, and that gets a little more complex because if you say what's behind gold, everybody knows about gold. They've used it for 5,000 years, so people know what it is. But it's always been. Gold didn't fall out of the sky and become money. Gold came out of the ground and was pretty, and they used it. Jewelry and it valued and all the important things of money. That happened, then it became very practical to be used as money. But you might find 20 things and more all the time. There's actually things being advanced now. Even when I was in medical school, we studied about there were some arthritises that could be treated with gold and silver, gold especially. And there's more and more. Silver's been used as a medication. And so it should be legalized for that reason. But that's what helps make it money. That isn't that you're using money to do that. It means that is what makes it money. I don't think you could make the same argument with a crypto. What are you going to say to we've created a crypto coin because we used to use this in medicine?
Well, I wanted to say this. I think because of you, Dr. Paul, you made a lot of people millionaires and billionaires. Because when your message was going around about the US dollar being unsound based on these policies, there were a lot of people that were trying to figure out what they could do to store their value properly. Of course, gold and silver were big. But when Bitcoin emerged, a whole bunch of libertarians and people who had heard your message said, I'm going to check this thing out. And they bought a bunch. And 10 years later, they're worth $400 million. Because governments all over the world are buying crypto and trying to use it. Many people have decided for whatever reason it has value to them. And the early adopters who were paying attention to the problems of the US dollar, they got to rise along with it.
So what does that prove?
I don't know if it proves anything. I just think if they listened to you for whatever reason, they ended up becoming very wealthy.
Yeah, but the one thing for sure, I wasn't giving investment advice.
Right, no, for sure.
I mean, it turns out it's okay, but I might have been talking about agriculture.
Yeah.
You could go out and buy land. Jimmy Rogers, oh yeah, that's what we should do. And that serves that function. But I think that's a little bit different. The way I answer those questions is, does that mean you want to be cautious and make some rules about Bitcoin? No, I'd let the market decide whether people really want Bitcoin or not. I go to a lot of Bitcoin crypto meetings and things, especially early on. And at these meetings, I became a little bit nervous because they had one individual there that they were hovering around, and these are the people that was running the conference. They were hovering around this woman that said, she had experience with Washington, D.C. as a lobbyist in Ways and Means, and will protect you when they start writing the laws about it. And I thought, no, you don't need. That's not my way of looking at it. I mean, if it's designed mainly to prevent fraud or something like that, you have to be open to it. But I just think that you don't need laws, to tell people how to protect against gold.
What concerns me about tying money to a hard thing like gold is that someone can steal all the gold. Like if we tie it to anything, then that thing can be taken and hoarded by someone.
Maybe. maybe, but they've let's see, the silver people back in the 70s, Hunt Brothers, they cornered the market and they took it up when silver was $5 or $3. They took it up to $50. They were hoarding it.
Wow.
But the market came along and took care of it.
But real quick, Ian, Bitcoin's been stolen tons of times. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
They find ways.
And right now, gold is at an all-time high. Bitcoin just hit above $30,000 today as well. And I remember doing my coverage of currency collapses in Venezuela and in Zimbabwe, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Before a currency kind of collapses, a lot of different things happen before it does. There's many things that happen in many different years, and then all of a sudden when it drops quickly, and the effects are one by one by one by one, and it goes by so fast, people are shocked and surprised. Do you think that is possible in the United States? Do you see a possible currency collapse, and potentially on what kind of time scale?
No, I don't see it's possible. It's going to be. It's going to happen.
Inevitable.
No, it will. Because they can't keep doing this. But you mentioned that some of those people that took my advice, I wonder if they're going to give me a cut on what they made. No, it just happened that there was an alternative, and so far the alternative has made a lot of people rich. But do you think there were 10 people, 100 people, 5,000 people, or 1 million people that bought cryptocurrency or crypto between 30 and 68? And it's on the way up and then on the way down. There's a lot of buying and selling. Yeah. So it is. Some people make a law, but the whole thing is I want a definition. I mean, they can do it. It would be legal as long as there's no fraud involved. But you still have to have a definition. I can define a gold dollar. And for us, it was not rounded off, but at the time of the Constitution, they had a precise weight of silver, which was the real monetary issue. But it was the gold was at $42 an ounce, and. $26 an ounce, and that would stay there for a long, long time. But that didn't prove anything other than we had a lot of gold, and we would. It's sort of like the Romans did. They'd advance their kingdom and go out and steal all the gold from the people. And in a way, we have advanced, our empire, and we have become very wealthy, but now we're consuming it. So definitions will change according to that. But you still know, it was $20 an ounce, and then it went to $35 an ounce, cheated the American people, total fraud. And then it was released in 1971. And it went to $800 an ounce. Then it had to be the market adjusting, and that's a benefit. The market will sort that out, but the definition is gone. My argument is you have to have a definition if you want to have a sound economy. And the world has never been on a fiat currency to the extent that we have now with the paper money dollar.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.